Thank you. Please be seated.
Good morning. We're getting some rain and some cool weather. Makes things a little easier on everybody. This morning, I want to talk to you about complacency. The things that it does in our lives and the people it affects. Now, the reason for me picking this particular topic is, as many of you may know, Riley and I bought a new vehicle here about a month ago. And that's the basis for this lesson today. Might sound a little bit strange, but I want to run with it. Now, I'd like y'all to turn to Proverbs 10, verse 4. And it says, "He who has a slack hand becomes poor, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. He who gathers in the summer is a wise son, and he who sleeps in the harvest is a son who causes shame." Well, that pretty much hit the nail right on the head right there. You know, it's talking about how if you work hard and do what God wants, you're going to prosper. But then if you don't, you're going to wind up a bum. Basically, that's the way I can see that. I may be wrong. So there's a lot of different ways of being complacent. And I'd like you to turn to, if I can say this right, Zephaniah. It's in one of the last books in the Old Testament. Verse 1, or chapter 1, verse 12. And it shall come to pass at that time, I will search Jerusalem with lamps and punish men who are settled in complacency. Yeah. I don't know how you guys translate that, but it seems like to me that God's going to say, well, if you ain't real willing to work, you're going to get the hand of God on you. And I honestly believe that. Now, complacency is, like I said, the lack or the ability of, or not wanting to do what you're supposed to do in a job or care for your family. And we sit here, and complacency is in every industry in the world. I don't care what it is. farming, ranching. You know, how many times have some of you farmers heard that you've had friends that hired part-time summer help and you had to go out there and help him untangle a tractor because he turned too short or he's tore up some stuff, and he looks at you and says, well, I'm sorry, and it doesn't bother him. You know, you just caused somebody about $10,000-$12,000 worth of damage here, and you know, and then I got to thinking about the guys walking the iron girders in New York City up there, and the man on the crane swinging the iron to them basically has their lives in his hands, because one slip of that girder, you're going to knock them off that I-beam up there. You know, you can't have complacency there. And there's complacency in the medical field. Doctors make mistakes, misdiagnose things, not intentionally. You have complacency in accounting firms. People that they want the paycheck, but they don't want to put out for it. And that just irritates me to no end to see things like that, because you've got people out there that are good, hardworking Christians, and they're trying to make a good living for their families, but then you got to pick up the slack for somebody that doesn't want to work. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I think our government has gotten a little bit too easy with some of the programs they have. I may be wrong. They're making it too easy to get government assistance rather than go find a job. See it everywhere. And so, what do? How do you combat that? Well, the only way that I can figure out how to do that is go to the Lord with prayer and turn it over to Him and see what becomes of that. When I was on Wheat Harvest, we had a few individuals that were, let's just say they want to make you pull your hair out. You know, they tore stuff up, wouldn't get out of bed on time. You had to tell them to do everything every single day, and it's pretty much a pattern. And I know it's very irritating for anybody that's got a business to have to run behind your employees to make sure they're doing what you're paying them to do. So, complacency. But now, getting back to the basis of the lesson here. My car. We bought that up there at Liberal, and you know how the car dealers are. After you buy something, they just and then go home. I don't know how to work this, or I don't know how to do this, or I don't know what this is for. Riley and I got home, and we're sitting in the thing, and Riley's fooling around with that screen, and something pops up on the screen. Check for occupants in the back. I'm going, wait, what did that just say? Riley said, well, I don't know. I said, well, can we get it to come back up? Well, we fooled with it for a little bit, and we couldn't figure out how to get it up. I said, well, wait a minute. I said, let's go drive around Hooker for a little bit and come back and park. So we did. We drove around for a little bit, come back and park, and it come up again. Check for occupants in the back. And I looked at Riley. I said, did we pick up Skylar at Tyrone coming home or what? I mean, have we gotten so complacent in our lives? And I talked to Clay Witt about this. And he said, the school buses have the same thing. You cannot turn them off until you walk to the back of the bus, push a button that'll allow you to turn the bus off, and that makes you check the bus for kids. And the cars is the same way. Well, we better turn around and look, see if anybody's in the back. Well, okay. I understand that there's been children that have died in cars that their parents have been irresponsible and ran in somewhere, turned the car off, and it's 100+ degrees outside, and they come out and the kids had died because of heat exhaustion or the cold. I've got a real problem with that. I cannot comprehend somebody leaving their children in a car in 100+ heat and not knowing they're back there. Oh my gosh, I forgot the kids. They're in the car. Oh my gosh. I cannot fathom that. Or you got grandma and grandpa in the back. There was a lady in Las Vegas a couple of years ago that had went into a casino, and she left her children in the car. She went in to go gamble, and she turned the car off. Well, everybody knows how hot it gets in Las Vegas. 3 hours later, she come out to the car, to EMS, pulling her children out of the car. They didn't make it. It's 148 degrees inside that car for 3 hours. That's like an oven. And I couldn't understand why somebody would be so complacent and irresponsible to leave their children in the back of a car like that, or senior citizens. I'm at a loss for words with that. But the Bible says that the fools will be weeded out among them. And you know how I see that? Let's just take all the warning labels off of everything and let nature play out. You know, because if you're stupid enough to pick up a Tide Pod and put it in your mouth and eat it, you stay away from me. And that's happened. There's TikToks out there with kids eating Tide Pods. And I'm going, you know, that's what's going to be running this country someday. Hope not. But it sure don't look too good right now. And with that said, we have a group of young men and women coming up through the ranks that have become immune to that, and they're not buying it. And I can't wait for those children and young adults to get in to where they can take over some things and straighten this up. Them and the power of prayer. There's young men and women in our church right now that are hardworking, come from good families, respectful individuals. And as we get older, those are the ones that we're going to have to trust and lean on. And it does my heart good to see people raising their children like that in today's society with all the distractions that are out there. So my hat's off to y'all. But we went to Buckland, Kansas yesterday. And a real close friend of mine had his 50th wedding anniversary. And we went, and I'm sitting there, and we're laughing and jeering and talking and everything. And I looked at him, and I said, how did you get through 50 years of marriage? They got married when they were 16 years old. And he says, well, when we first got married, everybody kind of laughed at us. Oh, they're 16 years old. What do they know? Well, here we are 50 years later. They must have known something. And I asked him, I said, how did you do it? He says, you got to listen. He says, you don't be stubborn. And he says, sometimes you got to be a little firm. And then he said something that really surprised me coming from this individual. He says, and you got to trust in the Lord. He said, that's what we did. And it was Kevin Ward. Him and his wife celebrated 50 years yesterday. And raised in Hooker, moved to Buckland, raised a wonderful family. He told me when I was leaving, he says, come and see me again. I said, well, yeah, you come and see me. And he says, well, if not, till we meet again. And I said, exactly. And I knew what he meant. He's not too religious, but he knows. And, but that kind of brought a few things into perspective for me and everything. But like I said, getting back to the little screen on the car, to where it reminds you to look. There's trucks out there that have that. Semi-trucks have that. And complacency, like I said, is somebody not paying attention. you've got an accident on the highway because somebody wasn't paying attention to what they were doing, whether it be a car or a truck. And there's fatalities involved. Lives have changed. Families are broken up. Basically because they're not paying attention to what they should have been paying attention to in the first place. So, I think that these two Bible verses hit the nail right on the head. And I looked up some others, and there's a whole bunch of them on complacency in the Bible. But I picked these two for this reason. They meant something to me and everything, and I wanted to share that with you this morning and everything. So, and I guess this is probably going to be about the close of this thing. I kind of running out of things to say here. So, but you know, I realized this morning before I stepped up here, I said, you know what? I said, I've hit the jackpot this morning. You know what? I said, I get to give a lesson in church to my favorite people. And then I get to go have fellowship dinner with my favorite people. And then I get to go home, stretch out in my chair in my easy clothes and watch NASCAR. And sleep. So, if there's any of you out there that need prayers or guidance, please come forward.